This Nationals team is not a complete team, and we know that at this point in 2025, but I want to take a look at center field. Jacob Young, is he the long-term answer? I'm going to tell you why. I don't believe so, and there's some in-house options.
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, I am your host, Ryan Clary. You can catch me over on Twitter at RyanClary11 and as well as our show page at LO_. And notes, make sure to check us out over on Twitter. And of course, look up Locked On Nationals wherever you get your podcasts, whether it's on Apple, Spotify, and of course, the video version over on YouTube. Again, just look up Locked On Nationals. Later on in today's show, let's play two. The Guardians and the Nationals got rained out last night, so we got a preview of a doubleheader today. First pitch, 3:35 over at Nationals Park, and it should be good, I believe. Hopefully will not be banged today, but we'll see later on in today's program. In the second segment, this is kind of one of those topics that I like to do every once in a while. Because while we do have the everydayers out there who listen every single day, where, again, you can find your podcasts wherever you get your podcasts. So make sure to check us out wherever. But still, how long should you give young players until you call it quits? Yesterday on Twitter, a local radio host kind of went on to say that he has given up on Dylan Cruz and not becoming a superstar yet. I think it's too early for him to call quits at this point with Cruz, but still, how long should you give young players before you come with a final jurisdiction of what you believe he is? We'll discuss that in the second segment of today's show, and I'm excited for that discussion also. But let's start off with Jacob Young. I'm going to tell you why he's not the long-term answer in center field. And the Nationals, they might have a long-term solution down in AAA, maybe a couple of them. We'll discuss that, but today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Jacob Young is a fascinating conversation. He is great defensively. He's pretty good on the base pass, even though he's kind of been caught stealing a lot this season, especially early on. He had a ton of hiccups on the base path, but still, I think he's overall a good high IQ base runner. Defensively, he was a Gold Glove finalist in center field, probably the best center fielder in all of baseball last season. That's covered. But his profile as a hitter, it's not good enough for me long term. And the reason why that is, not many people really expect this today because the game has changed a lot. But center field is still a primary offensive position for a lot of baseball teams. I think the proof is in the pudding. It's amongst one of the highest positions of OPS, average OPS across Major League Baseball. And it's always been a little bit of a power position with some speed mixed in. And Jacob Young has speed, but he doesn't necessarily have that power. But the conversation around Jacob Young has always been different because we're talking about someone who's so good defensively that he does kind of make up for the lack of offensive production. But I think we have gotten to a point where the lack of offensive production is outweighing the good of what he is doing defensively, and the numbers show that. So far this season, in 2025, I've been kind of collecting center field numbers. So I ran the numbers down from all starting center fielders in Major League Baseball so far. There's been thousands of games played already. I've got the OPS down to a number. As far as the average center fielder goes, right now, the average OPS for them is a 706. Jacob Young is at a 565. Batting average, the average of center field is 247. He's at 213. Slug, the average slug is a 394. Jacob Young is nearly 150 points below that at a 250. Weighted runs created plus, average there is 98. He's at a 68. The only above average offensive stat that Jacob Young has is his OBP sitting at 315, just a tick above average. Jacob Young is your prototypical fourth outfielder. And that is a great situation to have. I'll just add that there. He is great defensively. He is solid on the base paths. He's great in the clubhouse. Everyone loves him. You never hear about him complain. You never see him point fingers when things go wrong. He never does any of that. Ultimate team guy, ultimate clubhouse guy. But him as a starting outfielder in baseball, it holds your team back. And I think we have kind of seen that here as of recent. Alex Cole has been in the lineup, and when Alex Cole is in the lineup in place of Jacob Young, the Nats are simply better off offensively. Because I like Jacob Young, and I want to believe that Jacob Young could turn it around eventually. But there's enough proof right now to where I can say, pretty confidently I might add, that he is not a starting caliber center fielder in today's game. And it's not because of what he does defensively, it's because what he doesn't do offensively. You are missing something. We are missing an offensive piece in that outfield to take the place of Jacob Young. Someone who's preferably above average defensively, but also can provide a higher ceiling offensively. In the Nationals, they have two guys down in the minors who should be in the majors maybe sometime this season, certainly one of them. Number one, the name that I want to bring up is Robert Hassel III. Robert Hassel III has actually had a very good season down in the minor leagues. You saw him the other day as he went like 4 for 4. I believe he had a streak of going like 10 for 10 at one point. And so obviously his stats were going to be looking a lot better from what we saw this past season. But so far in the young season in Rochester, he's a 732 OPS with a 293 batting average, a 344 on-base percentage, and a 388 slug. All those in major league terms would be pretty well above average. But having someone like Robert Hassel who has the speed, not necessarily maybe the speed of Jacob Young, but he can certainly cover ground the way that he does. He is certainly an above average center fielder defensively. And I think that his ceiling, offensively speaking, is way higher. Someone who has hit for power in the past. Someone who does have that gap-to-gap power who can have extra base hits every so often. And also a second name that we could bring up, because I think Robert Hassel III is probably the more likely candidate at this point. But there's been another guy who has been killing it, who just got promoted to AAA Rochester, and that's Dalen Lyle. Dalen Lyle this season is completely turning the narrative on him around. We have always assumed that he's just going to be a trade piece. And I think that's a little bit unfair at this point. Because Dalen Lyle actually does have a very high ceiling for the Nationals. If you were to look at his numbers overall this season, they are very good. Batting .320 between AA and AAA, has a 356 OBP, a 518 slug mixed in there. He's got a couple home runs. He's got 7 stolen bases, 6 down in AA, I might add. He's got 4 triples and 8 doubles. This is someone who is peaking right at the right time, and he's only 22 years old. Dalen Lyle and Robert Hassel III, one of these two guys are going to make the jump and be your national starting fielder. I'm pretty confident in that at this point. Now, who will it be between those two? I think Robert Hassel III probably gets the first crack at it. And when will that be? I think that's another good question, because Robert Hassel III, he has not been 100% healthy the last few seasons. Went into camp this year, 100% healthy, put up great numbers in spring training after also putting up good numbers in the fall league this past year. He's probably going to be the first one up to take Jacob Young's spot. But I also don't want to get this twisted here. Jacob Young is a major league player. His defense, it's very good. He is going to find a spot somewhere if it's not with the Nationals. But ideally, I would like to keep him as a fourth outfielder. And that's the role that I think he should be in. So right now, he is out of place. And batting him ninth, it seems as if it's just an automatic out for when you have CJ Abrams and James Wood come up to the plate later on in games. And if you could have someone like Robert Hassel in there batting ninth, kind of your second leadoff hitter, I think that would provide a much higher ceiling. And then also down the line, Dalen Lyles in that situation there. I think this brings a lot of faith to the Nationals in this outfield. If you can provide Robert Hassel III or Dalen Lyle by the end of the season. Because one of those two guys, the way that they have been hitting, they will be getting the call up soon. I would expect that it's going to be Robert Hassel III because he makes the most sense. He has played in center field for years now, and he is really good defensively. So I think the Nationals are going to get kind of both ways of what they want. Someone who's good defensively and who also has a higher offensive ceiling in there also. But you got to think to yourself, when will this move happen? Hopefully soon, if we're just being honest, because I like Jacob Young. I think he's good. I don't think the Nationals should quit on him on this point, but it's very clear at this point that he is a fourth outfielder, and that's just fine. I want to talk about this because it actually kind of goes to the segment we just talked about. How long should you give? Like, how long is the leash of your young prospects before you can call it quits? Because a local radio host, someone who I'm friends with, called it quits on Dylan Cruz for him being a superstar. And I'll pull up that exact quote, not the exact quote, but we'll discuss that after we tell you about some of our very good friends over at Monarch Money. And of course, I have told you about Monarch Money. And you ever just check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out and online shopping and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. And that's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. I was checking Monarch Money the other day, and I realized that I've been spending way too much money on clothing, and I just thought to myself, I got to get back into the Marshalls rack there, go to the clearance section, because Monarch Money, they put me an alert there. They told me that I was spending a little bit too much money on clothes, a little bit too much money dining out and going out to fancy restaurants and all that stuff. And when I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on all things that I just should not, because it hurts my long-term goals, of which Monarch Money helped me set up. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money and use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. And thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. So let's get into this here, because I think this was an unfair thing about Dylan Cruz. And I think the conversation is something that should be had. How much time should be given to young prospects before you can really kind of call it quits? There's two different answers, but one that I really believe in. The one answer that I believe in is that you should give a young prospect at least 2 full seasons in Major League Baseball before calling it quits, before giving up. Because it does take time, especially nowadays with how good pitching is. Pitching is at an all-time high with how good guys are nowadays. You see 100 miles per hour every single night. You see a nasty sweeper every single night, a cutter that cuts out of this universe. Pitching is at an all-time high. So with hitters and with pitchers also, it takes some time for them to adjust. People calling it quits on Dylan Cruz at this point, I think it's insane. Although I will say this, if you want to recalibrate your expectations, sure. Because let's be honest, we were told that Dylan Cruz was going to be the next coming of like the best hitter out of college baseball. He was statistically one of, if not the best college hitter of all time. He was a great college hitter. We all thought he was going to hit the ground running, and that was not the case. But I think he is a great case study here. Because even him, for being so advanced as a hitter coming out of college, you have seen even down in the minors that it has taken some time. and that you see his batting average that has dipped below 200 again for what seems if for most of the season so far, it's going to take some time. You should be giving Dylan Cruz and really any young prospect 2 full seasons before you make any sort of judgment. Now, obviously, you might be thinking, sitting here today, being like, well, Ryan, you just made a jurisdiction on Jacob Young and what he does. He hasn't played 2 full seasons yet. And you're right. But guess what? I host a podcast every 5 days a week. I'm going to have to dish out some opinions. You can have an opinion, but to full on quit on anybody at this point in the season, then at this point in Dylan Cruz's career, it's out of this world. It's just not fair, number one. And number two, it's just flat out wrong. You have seen guys in years past start off very slow in their career and completely turn the table. Imagine if the Minnesota Twins took former first-round pick Royce Lewis, who was pretty bad down in the minors, and just gave up on him. What if they did? Because he was not putting up good numbers. He was never healthy. And then all of a sudden he gets up in the big leagues and he kills the baseball. He has been hurt throughout the last few seasons, even in the bigs, unfortunately for him. But if you compile his first 162 games, he is one of the best rookie players in baseball, in the history of baseball. He has put up those good of numbers. And he is just one example of one guy that does and that has hit the ground running. But look at Jackson Holliday. Someone that everyone in baseball was excited for. The number one prospect in all of baseball, Dylan Cruz right behind him. Jackson Holliday has struggled. It is rare nowadays to see a top prospect hit the ground and run. Jackson Chourio, who everyone was excited for last year. A 5-tool prospect of the Brewers. Someone who's great defensively, has power, can hit for average, can run, can do everything that you would want. Taken him some time also. And it did. He broke out in the second half of last year, and so far he's been pretty damn good on this early season. But you should not be just calling it quits on anyone yet. I think it's one of those premature reactions. And some people, and guess what? Let me just open up the curtains real quick. In the industry that I am in, with podcasting, and with radio, and with TV, you get paid to give an opinion. So it's just an opinion. And this is also just an opinion. But I think it's an important thing to kind of realize here. That when someone says, well, I've given up on Dylan Cruz being a superstar. He was number 2 overall pick. Look what Wyatt Langford is doing. I think that's unfair. Because guys have different paths. And he may as well be a quote-unquote bust. Maybe Dylan Cruz will be someday. But that's not a decision to make right now. And I think it's just way too premature to make any sort of just early opinion on Cruz at this point. And really with any prospect. Because a guy that we were talking about, who I think the Nationals should be placing in center field, hopefully soon, Robert Hassel III. That's a guy that a lot of people would have given up on in really plenty of years out there. But if you look at when the Nationals traded for him, he was a top 40 prospect in all of baseball, according to MLB.com. And he was expected to be the first one of that group to make the jump to the majors outside of C.J. Abrams and Mackenzie Gore, who were already there. But Robert Hassel III has been banged up the last few years, has not put up some good numbers, and he's still down in the minors at 24 years old at this point? Or 23 years old, rather? But he's still in the fold here. And he still has a bright future. And now you're starting to see him at just 23 years old start to turn things around a little bit. So overall with this conversation, I think it's just one of those that we just need to remind ourselves. And even myself. I look at Dylan Cruz's numbers and I'm like, well, that's not good enough. And it isn't. You can still, say that's not good enough. And that's just fine. That's an opinion that you can have. But to full on quit on anybody just yet, I think that's ridiculous. And I think it's something that a lot of baseball fans out there do, because when you watch guys each and every single day, these droughts, what they go on, it can be like 7 to 14 games, and sometimes it can be over a month. We've seen it from the best of the best. Aaron Judge, when he first got called up, he was awful. But now he's Aaron Judge. And now he hits 50-plus home runs a season, and he's the king of New York. Give these young prospects some time. And yes, this is even a reminder to myself. I say it in the mirror every morning. Don't crap on the young players. They're trying their best. They're trying to go out there and make a difference. And sometimes it takes a little while for them. So just a friendly reminder, while everyone's up in arms over on Twitter talking about Dylan Cruz, nothing is set in stone yet, and this guy is still developing. And it's not just about Cruz also, it's about the young prospects overall. Give them time. It's going to take some time. There's a process that is going to have to be trusted. There's a process that they're going to have to go through before you call it a quit. That's all I'm saying here. So keep that in mind when you talk about prospects, when you see guys going through struggles here, because CJ Abrams, another good example of a guy who struggled a ton early on in his career. Fast forward 2 years, he's in the All-Star game. Keep that in mind going forward. So thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. Next, let's talk about this. Doubleheader today. Let's go. I love it. 3:35 first pitch over at Nats Park. We got Jake Irvin on the bump in game 2. There is a Brad Lord day. We'll discuss that and more after we tell you about our friends at Prize Picks. And of course, there is nothing better than catching an MLB game live. The crack of the bat, the roar of the crowd, and the smell of ballpark food. If you're looking to go last minute, Game Time makes getting tickets easier than ever. With last minute deals and all-in pricing and a lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the stress out of buying MLB tickets, plus ticket prices drop as Game Time gets closer, meaning you can score an incredible deal. And my favorite thing about Game Time is, well, number one, they're the official ticketing partner of Locked On Nationals. And of course, for a Nationals game that is coming up, I can count on them to help grab tickets that meet my needs. If you want to walk up to the 3:35 first pitch today on a Tuesday, I can tell you this much, they're going to have flash zone deals. You're going to be able to see the view that you have from your seats just from one click on your phone. They give you that. It's an easy seat view before you buy. And of course, the Game Time Picks feature. This makes finding the best deals effortless, and it filters out the fluff and highlights the top discounts in the stadium. And especially, again, Tuesday game, 3:35 p.m., not many people are going to be there. There's going to be a ton of deals, so check out Game Time and take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Let's play 2 with the Washington Nationals, taking on the Cleveland Guardians. And so far, first and foremost, yesterday's game being rained out. I hate rainouts, and this was just another reminder why I've actually been anti this in years past, but I was really looking forward to yesterday's game. I've always loved the Cleveland Guardians, and I love to see them when they're in town. Yesterday was just another reminder. I think baseball should be played under a roof, especially here in DC. It just makes sense. The weather here is awful. It's very unpredictable. And I think a lot of weather meteorologists out there, whatever you want to call them, they called the rain quite a long time ago, but still, it's unpredictable, man. And thunderstorms just totally took over the area. It was spotty storms. They were popping up every second. And it was just a reminder that, you know what? Maybe a dome would not be all too bad for the Washington Nationals. But let's talk about this. The Nationals take on the Cleveland Guardians today. The Cleveland Guardians coming in 20-14 on the young season. The Washington Nationals sit at 16-19. They have a chance to get up to 500 after taking 2 of 3 against the Cincinnati Reds, and they continue the tour against the Ohio teams. Next up, you got Cleveland coming to town today. So you have Jake Irvin on the bump going up against right-handed pitcher Luis Ortiz, who is coming off a very sharp game against Minnesota Twins, in which he looked really good. Probably one of his best starts all season long. Went 6 1/3 innings pitched, 3 hits given up, no earned runs, 2 walks, and 5 strikeouts on the season. He had 1 start against the Royals early on this year where he struck out 10 guys. But other than that, not really a strikeout guy. So the Nationals, for a team that kind of struggles to put the ball in play at times, this is kind of what you want. And fortunately for the Nationals, you've got Jake Irvin. Jake Irvin is coming off some rough starts here as of recent, having a pretty bad outing against the Philadelphia Phillies this time last week. Having a day game, though, with a little bit of warm weather. It'll probably be a little bit muggy out, but this is one of those things where Jake Irvin, the light's not going to be on you. Let's get you back into form here, because we all know how good Jake Irvin can be. We know that he could be a great starting pitcher here. It's about putting together these consistent performances. Can you have your fastball stay in the 90s early on? Because as we saw last week, that was a big issue. He threw an 88-mile-per-hour fastball. I don't care what anyone says. Like, yes, he has a history of his velo dipping as the game goes on. A lot of pitchers do that. I understand. But his fastball overall has been down by 2 miles per hour so far this season. And in yesterday's game, in his last game that he pitched, he had an 88-mile-per-hour fastball. I'm going to be watching for his velocity here. I'm not going to sound the alarms, but I want to see where he's sitting at in the first inning and where he's sitting at in the 4th, 5th, and 6th innings if he can get into there. Because if you're throwing 88-mile-per-hour fastballs, it's not going to help too much. I'll just tell you that right now. So we'll see if Jake Irvin can continue his stretch here, make sure he bounces back and really get that fastball velo back up to where we want it to be, because I'm not going to sound the alarms, but that is slightly concerning. Brad Lord, starting in game 2 against Ben Lively, someone that we saw last year, actually. Really good pitcher, in my opinion. He's actually kind of had a slow start this year, but this is one of those things where I talked about it this last time where he looked really good against the Phillies, but this could be his final opportunity to start on this year's team. I don't think it will be, because Soroka is expected to be activated tomorrow, I believe, at this point, according to David Martinez, after another successful rehab start. But Brad Lord, if he wants a spot on this rotation, and if you want to make your case for being the next guy up once Soroka or anyone else gets banged up again, then today's the day. Coming off a great start against a good Phillies offense, do the same thing against another good offense today. So keep your eye out for Brad Lord. See if he can go deep in the game. It's going to be about the starting pitching. And for the Nationals, with the way that this bullpen is, you better hope that these starters go deep in a game, because a doubleheader, it's hell for your bullpen. And any bullpen, it doesn't matter how good or deep you are, you're going to want your starters to go deep into games. So we all get started with Jake Irvin. So no pressure. Good luck. But let's play 2. The Nationals have 2 games today. Not 1, but 2. That's fun. We'll discuss that on tomorrow's show. And of course, check us out wherever you get your podcasts, whether it's on Apple, Spotify, and of course the video version over on YouTube. I will catch you guys on the flip side. Have a good one. Go Nats.